I am studying for the CAPM certification. That means I'm aspiring to become a project manager. As I go through this program, I'm going to be sharing information with you that I'm learning. Hopefully this will reach people interested in becoming a project manager. If that's you, think of these videos as a way to reinforce your learning process. Study the actual material, and then come here to join the discussion on project management. My name's Corey, and here's what I'd like to discuss with you today. Risks, issues, assumptions, and constraints. The terms risks and issues come up a lot in project management. They sound pretty similar, but there is a clear distinction made by the PMI about which is which. And in order to understand these, we first need to understand what assumptions and constraints are as far as project management is concerned. An assumption is something that is held to be true without any real, proof, I guess, of it. And assumptions get a bad rap, but as far as project management goes, assumptions aren't definitely a good thing or a bad thing. For example, if you have a junior dev on your team who's just joined the company, and let's say he or she is showing good promise, you can pretty safely assume that that person's going to stay on the team throughout the project because they're going to need experience and they're going to want to stay there so that they can learn from the more experienced developers. It might not necessarily be provably true that this person's going to stay for the entire length of the project, but you can make the assumption that they are. A constraint is like a limitation that the project has to abide by. This can be either a time constraint, a cost constraint, or a scope constraint. A time constraint would be like, we're installing pools and they need to be in before the end of May so that they're ready for summer. A cost constraint pretty clearly relates to the budget that you're working with. If you're on a $1 million project, then you are constrained to create something that is feasible within $1 million. And the third constraint is scope. The scope being how much you can actually accomplish within this project or what the requirements for the project are. Your scope constraint can be affected if new features are added to a project. Let's say you have some time tracking software for employees, but the client now wants to add a messaging service into it. That is going to affect the scope. It's not something that you had planned for before. And when there's a change to any of these constraints, there's also going to need to be trade-offs between the constraints. For the pool example, they want the pools to be installed by the beginning of May, not the end of May. Yeah, okay, we can do it, but it's going to cost you more money because we're going to need to hire more staff in order to install these. That's a trade-off. You're going to want to record trade-offs and make sure that all of the stakeholders who are, concerned with this certain constraint are informed that something is changing. If this information is useful to you already, can you please give this video a thumbs up so that it can reach other people who are interested in project management? Thanks. So assumptions are something that is assumed to be true. A constraint is a limitation that you need to work within. Now we can move over into risks and issues. Risks obviously sound like a bad thing for a project, but in actuality, a risk can be either negative or positive. By definition, a risk is strictly any condition that may occur and would affect project objectives. It's super important to monitor risks because in order to mitigate threats, you're going to want to record information about possible risks within the risk register. The risk register is something that is created during the planning phase. It's going to be recorded within either the business case or the project charter. This is something that stakeholders who are approving your project are going to need to know about before the project begins. A few key points that you're going to want to keep track of in the risk register in order to prioritize risks that you need to monitor are going to be the impact that this would have on the project, the severity of that impact, and also the likelihood or the probability that it's even going to happen. And then speaking of a risk that happens, that is what we call an issue. A risk becomes an issue when that risk actually occurs. Similar to having a risk register in order to keep track of things that might happen, when you get some issues actually occurring, you're going to log them in the issue log. Let me know in the comments if you've run into risks that have then become issues in any of the projects that you've run. Be interested in seeing some examples. The issue log is going to have information like a description or a definition of the issue that's occurred, the name of the person who raised the issue, the name of the person who's going to research the issue, what the potential impact of the issue is on the project, and then when should we expect an update on progress made in resolving this issue. Issues are something that you're going to want to periodically revisit with your team until the issue is either resolved or accepted. Accepted meaning that it's not worth looking into anymore. You're okay with this being something that has happened to your project. For more project management related videos, check out this playlist right here. See ya!